Welcome to the VIPCO Podcast, Strong Uncut, and this is episode 5. I'm Jason Impey, independent filmmaker, joined as ever with
James Simpson, author of Video Nasty Mayhem, and a VIPCO fan, as is Jason, and that's why we're very excited to talk about this certain film in particular, because it's a classic of cult cinema and VIPCO.
It is, the title we're talking about is Shogun Assassin, and to be honest with you, Shogun Assassin is just one of the first titles that pops in my head when you say VIPCO for many reasons.
It's I have it on multiple VIPCO releases actually. I have it on VHS and 2 different DVDs of the film. So VIPCO certainly got the money's worth out of it.
Yeah, this is one of the titles where they had the pre-cert video and then carried it over to DVD, but not on the Screen Time collection. It always actually had a proper case, this one, and remained on a fancier release rather than the Screen Time black case gold edition write-in ones.
Well, the artwork for any release that VIPCO have done, and many other people around the world have done, the artwork's just fantastic. So maybe Mike Leigh felt it was worth keeping its artwork, plus the fact any films that underperformed or financially did badly got the Screen Time treatment, but Shogun Assassin never underperformed, made Mike very rich. So that might be why he also kept the original artwork for Shogun Assassin. He
actually did go out on Shogun Assassin, because Shogun Assassin is the only film that Mike actually released at the cinema as well as on home video and DVD. He actually toyed and put this on cinema release, which is an experience he didn't enjoy, because as he said, he likes to go to the cinema to chill out. He found that quite stressful and didn't do it again. So it was the first and only time that he did a cinema release of one of his films, which happened to be this title.
Yeah, very unusual, but it's much like when Mike attempted in the 80s to be a film producer with Spookies. He found it so stressful he didn't do it again. He liked releasing the films already made straight to VHS, then DVD. Spookies, he decided he didn't want to make any more films, although he would change his mind with The Claw, and later on the film You Nearly Made with him. But he changed his mind about releasing films at the cinema, then onto tape, because of the experience of Shogun Assassin. Maybe it sounded like, or maybe it was too much like hard work for Mike.
Yeah, I mean, Shogun Assassin is Mike's favourite film he's released. It made him the most money, was his biggest seller ever, but he also actually loved this film. When I spoke to him about it, he asked if I'd seen it, and he was like, it's a great film, isn't it? 120 minutes of pure bliss. 120 minutes of pure bliss. He actually, he really generally got behind this one and loved it. He also gave the white and wash option, which he went on about, where he said he released it as an E180 tape, and it had the option to watch the film, and if you didn't like it, record over it. Back in the times where you could record stuff off the TV on your VCR, or if you liked it, keep it. He said they sold bucket loads, but also it got caught up in the nasty scandal, and he did have all his VHS stock removed from the warehouse and taken. But however, he said he got Shogun Assassin back. His sister helped him and he fought it, and they actually returned all the stock. So he said it didn't really damage the sales too much. And then on the DVD era, where it was released uncut still, he sold a ton, but then did a promotion with HMV because it was mentioned as the sleepy lullaby film in Kill Bill 2. He cashed straight in on that. They whacked that on a new case, like a red case, and HMV did a deal where if you buy something in store, you can get that for $2.99. And Barry Gold, the warehouse stockist, said they were like churning those out. It was just the biggest seller ever, made him a fortune in both the pre-cert era and DVD era. It was a consistent high seller for him throughout the career of VIPCO.
Yeah, obviously Mike likes anything that makes him money. He was in love with Zombie Flesh Eaters because it made him a millionaire, and then I'd probably imagine after he lost the rights to Zombie Flesh Eaters, somehow, strangely, considering how it's such a big money earner, he was probably quite relieved he still had Shogun Assassin to pick up the slack financially when it came to losing one of the best-selling titles for VIPCO.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely kept hold of Shogun and made his money out of that. It's funny. Shogun Assassin gets a lot of criticism for its release, though, because of the ridiculous widescreen on the DVD. That probably has the largest widescreen in a released film ever, actually, to be honest. It's always mentioned when people think of Shogun Assassin with VIPCO.
It is literally like looking through an actual letterbox, a letter slot in the door. Which is actually, for the purpose of this episode today, I have rewatched Shogun Assassin, and it was in that very extreme widescreen, or shall we say narrow screen version. Still obviously a good film, but it's quite mad that I'd probably say nearly 70% of the screen's just black. For VIPCO, it seems any criticism for VIPCO, people remember that more than the good things of VIPCO, such as the fact that Mike brought Shogun Assassin to the cinemas, then onto home video for the UK, but many people are quick to say, well, actually, it had this insanely stupid widescreen presentation, but, you know, again, Mike Lee was doing this at a time when nobody else was releasing these films to the British public.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those situations, again, where he didn't really technically understand releasing films. He was given a master, and the master was in the widescreen aspect ratio, and he didn't know how to remaster properly, and it was early infrastructure of DVD, so he kind of got his master tape and just stuck it out how it was, and it happened to be a very heavily aspect ratioed version, which he did no treatment to correct the aspect ratio or work on it. It was just what you see is what you get, turn out the master tape onto disc and then stick digitally remastered on it.
Mike clearly relished having the film. His usual way with words for the sleeves of VHS and DVDs isn't at full force, especially with taglines on the front cover such as "He whips out his sword and relieves his victims of their heads," "It's impossible to keep a body count," and "The blood gushes out all over the screen as if being hosed into the camera," according to Mike. It's not quite as visceral as that, but there is blood spraying everywhere. Maybe not directly into the camera like being hosed, but he is right. There is blood squirting around during the film. And I don't know about it being impossible to keep a body count. I mean, at one point there is a reference to how many victims there have been. But again, Mike knew what sells, and the picture alone is a great image for a DVD release, VHS release, but taglines like that and the fact it's got so much blood, Mike knew as well that's going to sell.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it was one of the top 4, as in, like, it had the trailer on all the DVDs along with the other 3 films, the infamous 4 trailers, and as you said, it had TV spots. When VIPCO had their TV spots, there was a lot of Shogun Assassin footage featured in that commercial.
Yeah, and then interestingly enough, on the DVD I have, there's only one trailer, and that is the trailer for Shogun Assassin, so we're not graced with the infamous 4 of Mountain of the Cannibal God, Cannibal Holocaust, Zombie Flesh Eaters, and well, obviously we did get Shogun Assassin. But also on the packaging, or at least on the DVD version I watched today, it's plastered as well with all the usual VIPCO little eye-catching screams of banned since 1983. Previously banned, it's the uncut version. Mike really wanted to hammer home the fact that, you know, come on people, this is uncut, this is gory. It used to be banned. It's been banned for this long, apparently, which is not quite true. Mike hammered home anyone looking at Shogun Assassin who might not be aware of it, that the film they're getting might have had a bit of a difficult past in terms of trying to be released uncut.
Yeah, I mean, it stands out in the catalogue as well, because it's not your traditional horror, sleazy horror film, cannibal, zombie, slasher movie. It is actually a martial art epic, really. So it stands out a bit like a sore thumb for the collection in some ways.
Well, I mean, it's some aspects it is in keeping with VIPCO, because it's, in a way, it's sort of, it was classed as a video nasty. It wasn't quite a video nasty, and Mike, of course, went for video nasties. It was notorious for its violence, the bloodshed. Some would say it's sort of maybe exploitation cinema with the bloodshed and the samurai swords and the sheer amount of hyper violence. So that does tie into VIPCO in some way. Another thing I wanted to mention about the packaging for the film is that on at least one release, which I have actually, I don't know if you have it, Jason, there was a VHS release where Mike actually loved the artwork so much he reissued it with an art card or a postcard of the artwork.
Yeah, I do have an art card of it, but I got mine. So he released that limited edition box set, which had the Mutilator burning and Shogun Assassin in, and I have that box with the art cards. And again, so it meant a lot to him, that film, because again it was issued on, I said, it came out on VHS, then DVD, reissued on DVD, and was also featured in their limited edition box set. And he only done 2 box sets ever. It was the House of Clocks box set, which was like a package of films. Then he's like prized limited edition with your art cards numbered box, which he featured Shogun Assassin on. And I say Shogun Assassin very quickly became attached to VIPCO. Everyone always thought of VIPCO with that. But he didn't know much of the origin of the film either, funny enough. Like, Mike loves Shogun Assassin and goes on about it, but I think he's very unaware that it's actually 2 of the Lone Wolf and Cub films cut and pasted together. I don't think he actually realises that. He just thinks it's his own standalone crazy film. He doesn't know much of the history of the film at all, what he really was releasing.
Well, I must be honest, when I was first aware of this film, pre-internet days, and the fact I was a school kid, obviously I just thought it was a film called Shogun Assassin. It wasn't until 2000 when I got access to the internet and started exploring these films that I'd never seen, but had always wanted to see, that I found out it was actually 2 films in one, very cleverly edited together. Much of the film is actually Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cat at the River Styx, and some of it is Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance. But I think you're right, Mike. As we've discussed before on podcasts here, and we'll probably discuss again, Mike sometimes didn't quite care about the films or treat them with respect. He only showed respect to a film if it made money. So the fact that Mike Lee is unaware that it's got a very different history to what he knew doesn't surprise me.
No, he kind of, he got hold of films, wanted to know if it would be good for him. Did take a liking to Shogun Assassin. As I said, he generally enjoyed it and liked it, but didn't delve too much into it. He just thought it was a fun, good film. And so I think there was a bit of his personality in this film, because it was released so much and pushed so much by VIPCO. That's generally a passion project for him, because he just generally loved the film, and he liked to go on about that one and talk about it. So I almost feel like he pushed that for people to see. He wanted people to see Shogun Assassin. He thought it was a great film and people should see this, and made that very widely available. It's probably the easiest VIPCO film to pick up at all. It's a very easy one to get hold of. There were so many of them and so many releases, and obviously now it's been re-released and been remastered on Blu-ray. It's just so cheap and easy to pick up. I'm pretty sure any VIPCO fan or collector out there has a copy of Shogun Assassin from VIPCO.
Well, I mean, as I've said, I've got it on VHS and DVD. I got the VHS on eBay, but I found my DVD copy of it in a charity shop of all places. So that shows that at least at some point somebody has had enough of their VIPCO DVD of Shogun Assassin. But that the charity shops are usually cluttered up with DVD copies of Titanic or Guardians of the Galaxy or Avatar DVDs. You don't usually see Shogun Assassin, but that's where I got my DVD. So I think Jason's right. It's one of the most easily accessible in terms of getting hold of it when it releases of VIPCO.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of blind buys for that as well, because of the HMV promotion. When people stand at the front of the counter with a purchase, and there's like stacks from sat there going only $2.99 with a purchase. I think there was a lot of people got presents of Shogun Assassin. A lot of people just blind bought it thinking, oh, it looks cool, it's cheap on offer. So yeah, that accumulated in many households at one point or other, Shogun Assassin.
And I think I've mentioned before in this podcast that I was first aware of Shogun Assassin because I saw the thumbnail picture, as it were, of that in adverts displaying VIPCO titles you could order via phone or via check back in those old days. But in the early 90s or late 90s, I think it was, I can't remember when it happened, but there was a Channel 5 TV show called Out There. Actually, I think it began 2001. I can't remember the original host's name, but it ended up being hosted by Horror Channel's very own Emily Booth. And that show used to always show clips of really violent horror movies, cult movies, kung fu movies, as well as some softcore porn. and pretty much every episode of Out There had a couple of clips from Shogun Assassin. So the fact that a show that prides itself on showing the most insane, extreme horror or cult cinema clips from movies features Shogun Assassin a lot, shows the drawing power of Shogun Assassin, and Mike was probably very happy for the free advertising.
Yeah, definitely. He stood behind that film, as because he loved it. He definitely stood behind it, and he thought it was quite ludicrous, Shogun Assassin getting caught up in the nasties and getting raided for. I think he was a bit miffed about why Shogun Assassin was confiscated, but again, it did make it onto the DPP list, and is again, it stands out as the nasties as well, because it is a bit different than the other nasties. It's one of the more, to me, it's one of the more unusual titles and films that is on the nasties list, because of it not being really, well, it's not a horror film at all. It's very gory. It is full of gore, and it's got great effects and very over the top blood gushing out of sword wounds, but it's not a horror film at all.
No, it's if anything, it's about a tale about obviously revenge for a heartbroken man. In some ways, he takes being a single father to the extremes by having his kid go with him while he kills all these people. But it's unusual in a sense for VIPCO to have a sort of a film with a heart, as it were, compared to some of the other titles. But part of me thinks the controversy around the film arose because I don't know if listeners remember this, but there was a time in the British media, the British government, that they were worried that people might, if people see films or TV shows about ninjas, they might go out and reenact that. I don't know if you remember that controversy happening, Jason.
I do, yeah. I remember the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles came under fire because of the nunchucks that Raphael had.
Obviously, in other parts of the world, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In the UK, that was a big no-no because they were worried that kids might become ninjas. So they changed it to Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. But yeah, they were worried, I assume the British government, that kids would somehow get hold of ninja throwing stars or daggers and start jumping off balconies onto each other and killing each other. And that was one of the reasons why Shogun Assassin got so much heat, as it were, because it was part of this weird little thing that the British establishment, I guess you could say, had against any films that depicted ninjas or hyper-violence that might be deemed in that way.
Yeah, the weapons was a big no-no, and the BBFC for many years, still to this day, are funny on weapons, and ninja stars were a huge problem and caused a lot of film censorships. I said nunchucks for a while, they caused issues, and star knives, flick knives as well. Even big Hollywood films have a few little trim-ups. Even now, to get the ratings they desire, they have to be a bit careful of showing weapon usage like that.
But it's strange, isn't it, looking back compared to, well, now here we are, 2019, but you go back to the 80s up to the early 90s, people could get so bent out of shape over kids, or not even kids, adults watching something like this and maybe trying to reenact it. And we touched upon this in the Driller Killer episode, where people told Mike Lee that they were worried about him selling the Driller Killer because they thought people watching it would go out and recreate scenes of the Driller Killer in the streets, as if people watching it are going to go out and actually drill someone in the head. I don't think anyone was going to go out in the streets and recreate Shogun Assassin.
No, you never know, though, do you? You never know. It happened with A Clockwork Orange, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some people, very few instances over the years have been where people have recreated something from a film, but these people have got also other reasons why they have done this. There's more context than just watching a film and doing it. And I don't think anyone watching Shogun Assassin would go out and get a baby cart and kit it out with blades in the wheels. I mean, if they did, that would be an interesting episode of Jeremy Kyle if they ever brought it back.
Yeah, that was it's quite an inventive film, I must admit. That is a very inventive thing to do with the baby cart.
Yeah, well, actually, Mike even mentions this on the back of the DVD that I have. He simply states in bold yellow text, all capitals, "Watch out for Junior. as he releases the blades from the wheels of his rickety wooden pram. So Mike feels the need there to tell us that it's rickety, despite the fact that probably the key thing that he's mentioned there is it's got blades. I don't think it matters if it's rickety. If it's got blades coming out that slash your shins at pieces, you're pretty much fucked, regardless of it being rickety or not.
I love the way that some of these old releases also just give the whole film away on the case without watching the film. You're like told what's going to happen.
Interesting you should mention that because, in many ways, because this film is one of Mike Leigh's favourite films he released. However, he's very against House on the Edge of the Park, and the DVD release I have of House on the Edge of the Park pretty much gives away the whole plot. I assume you've got that release in your collection, Jason. I don't know if you remember the plot synopsis on the back of that.
I do. I have the actual screen time DVD of it, the black case version with the gold writing for House on the Edge of the Park, and I've got that Cannibal Holocaust 25th anniversary edition that he gave it free away with as well.
Just showing off there, aren't you, Jason? But anyway, yeah, but
it's interesting, like you said, though, he hates it, but yet he gave it the treatment like that. He cashed in on Cannibal Holocaust and stuck that film in there. I know it's because it's Ruggero Deodato and they're both his films and it's an anniversary of Cannibal Holocaust, but considering he really did hate House on the Edge of the Park, he did give it, he gave it an extra little oomph there, giving it away with Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, but as I was saying, the DVD release I have, Mike pretty much gives away the whole story on the back of the sleeve. So when I put it in the VIPCO book, Video Nasty Mayhem, because each review for each film has the synopsis from the sleeve, I actually had to cut it short, and I mentioned in the book, if you've not seen this film and you don't want it spoiled, I've had to cut this because Mike Leigh must have been nuts putting the whole plot and even the final of the film on the back of the DVD. And then and knowing that Mike doesn't like the film, part of me thinks, did he do it on purpose as sabotage, not to encourage anyone to buy it? But then again, he's a businessman. Wouldn't he want someone to buy the film?
It's just an interesting one because he actually he thought it was nasty. The reason he didn't like it is he thought it was a very nasty, vile piece of work. And I actually almost got the impression he felt a little bit of ashamed and regretful of actually releasing it. He didn't really want to talk about it. He definitely didn't like it. He expressed how much he didn't like it, along with New York Ripper as well, which makes me wonder because New York Ripper was released on video but never made it to DVD, and I do wonder if that's partly because he just didn't want to know because he really didn't like the film. But I noticed the themes of the films, like the violence towards women and rape and that. He seemed to have a real problem with that content in films. And obviously House on the Edge of the Park and New York Ripper are quite heavy on that content. And yeah, he was not a fan at all.
Well, it's interesting you bring up New York Ripper because obviously Mike didn't like that. It's still a film surrounded in controversy and cuts and the like. I personally think it is a great film. I can see why people don't like it, but I think in terms of a good piece of exploitation cinema, it's great. And I was just wondering what your thoughts are on New York Ripper.
I actually love New York Ripper. I think it's a great film. I think it's one of Fulci's amazing pieces of work. It's real trash in exploitation, but it's erotic and brutal and violent and challenges society and a little bit of Driller Killer to me, and I love it. I think it's really good. I think it's one of his better films. Very over the top gore and real life horror, really. But I think it's unique and it stands out. It stands out a lot. I remember that forever after watching that the first time because it is brutal, I must admit. And I said in the UK it's still cut. You can't get it uncut over here still, but very brutal piece of work. BBFC hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the film, and if you buy the VIPCO book whenever it goes on sale, or if you happen to know someone who's got a copy and read the review for New York Ripper on pages 48 to 49, because I do sort of sing the praises of that film a bit. And for me, I like the ending of the film New York Ripper. There's a shot of a wide shot of New York City, and you can hear a child crying. And I think there's some sort of message in there that you see this horrible mean city and you can hear a child crying, especially after what you've seen in the film. But getting back to Shogun Assassin, Mike, obviously when he had some success with a film or he saw a sort of trend emerging, in terms of horror cinema, he would jump on that and exploit it. In terms of Shogun Assassin, despite the fact it always made him big money, I'm personally shocked that Mike Leigh never really tried to get more films like this. You spoke to Mike about this film and his love. Did he ever mention if he tried to get similar films?
Not really. There's other films he wanted, but the ones he expressed he wanted were more money-making films, which I was surprised about when he said Last House on the Left, because of his hate for House on the Edge of the Park and New York Ripper. I was a bit... He must have obviously just been thinking that become infamous and a moneymaker, and it's more of a known title. I think he actually looked down upon New York Ripper and House on the Edge of the Park, but it was more kind of horror-related stuff that he wanted to get his hands on. I think he felt quite blessed to get Shogun Assassin and just used it to get it out and show appreciation for that film, because he just had it. But yeah, he never. It was only other horror titles he went on about.
Well, in the Zombie Flesh Eaters episode, we mentioned how when Mike lost the rights to Zombie Flesh Eaters, he sort of panicked and got other not similar but zombie films that he repackaged as Zombie Flesh Eater sequels. I'm shocked he hasn't bought some sort of cheap and nasty Japanese kung fu movie and repackaged it as Shogun Assassin Part 2, The Sword is Back.
Yeah, I must admit, yeah, he missed a trick there. I'm surprised there's not a Shogun Assassin 2.
Who knows if Mike... It's unlikely that he'll do this, but if Mike Leigh ever does decide that he feels well enough to revive VIPCO, maybe we can help him make Shogun Assassin 2 a reality. Or knowing Mike, he might just repackage Shogun Assassin and just stick a number 2 next to the title and hope nobody notices.
Without the ultra widescreen.
No, I think that'll have to be part of it. And he'll actually, if Mike ever came back into the business and released something onto Blu-ray, he probably would somehow find a way to make the picture quality worse than it should be, considering how it's Blu-ray.
I mean, the picture quality wasn't too bad on the VIPCO Shogun Assassin. Some films stand out more than others for bad picture quality. But I think Shogun, apart from the widescreen, the actual quality wasn't too bad. The one that always got me is The Slayer was quite poorly released. I think I have read about this. I think it is probably one of the only DVD releases, like official DVD releases, has like video tracking lines in it. And I actually admit, when I first watched my VIPCO DVD many years ago, when I first got it of The Slayer, I wondered what the hell was happening, because there is like video tracking lines come on it, and it proper looks like a video that's gone wrong and bust. And but that was the DVD he stuck out.
Yeah, Mike's got a bit of a reputation for DVDs and not getting it quite right, such as Death Screams. He put he transferred it over in the wrong order. And as you've just heard Jason say there, but Shogun Assassin, apart from being a VIPCO film and obviously why we're talking about it today, I personally think it's just an outstanding film in its own rights, regardless of who released it.
Yeah, I think Shogun Assassin is a great piece of cinema, and it did wonders for VIPCO, but it's a great piece of cinema actually, and we're thankful to Mike for actually bringing it to UK shores, and he brought it in the video era, even cinema and then DVD, so he got Shogun Assassin out to UK audiences, that's for sure.
So for me personally, it's just a great film because of the direction, the sound. It's got a great score, it's got great effects, but it's got great production values, and the fact it's 2 films edited together as well. You can't really tell where the joins are, as it were. It's such a slick professional job before even Mike got his hands on it.
Shogun Assassin is a really well made film. I was going to say the same. I think it's beautifully shot, a great well made film, but the editing amazes me, because it is technically a cut and pasted film. When I first watched it, I had no idea it was like all cut and pasted up. It was so well edited together, you just wouldn't know. It works as its own film. So, and as an editor myself, that's really hard. I got to take my hats off to him for that. That the editing on that does amaze me, how that they pulled that off.
Yeah, and the director has done a great job, and I'll mention this now for anyone who's going to notice down the line. Speaking of editing, I've just noticed in my copy of Video Nasty Mayhem, somewhere within that review for Shogun Assassin is the word edit, which was a prompt for me to remember to edit a certain part of the book, before it went to the printers and too late. But so there you go. Jason, who's done this job himself as an editor, is that impressed, and also for a film of that time, 1972, it looks, I'd say, decades ahead of its time as well.
Yeah, I think it is. It does look a bit ahead of its time. It's got a retro feel to it, but yet it does look quite modern at the same time.
But as I've said moments ago as well, the production values are great. It's just that there's not anything that looks flimsy or weak or naff of the film, considering how there's so many sets and locations and actors and extras and props to be used for the bloodshed. It looks like every penny for that film was put to good use.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's one of the better films VIPCO released as well, actually, and again, it stands out. Obviously, it's one of the most important, significant titles because of the whole cross-media platform that happened with that film. And it stayed with them from the beginning of VIPCO to the end of VIPCO. It's one of the long-lasting serving titles they had.
Yeah, not many titles sort of stayed the course for VIPCO throughout its entire run. Maybe that's because he being Mike felt like he needed to let some films go, or as we heard with Jason the other week, I think it was Cannibal Holocaust. He submitted it to the BBFC and forgot about it for years, and then released it. Shogun Assassin, it stayed the course for a very long time in the company's history. I think in terms of films that have stayed with VIPCO for a long time, it rivals the likes of Zombie Flesh Eaters, which he had it for decades, as well as The Boogeyman, which he had for decades. A couple of other titles in there that VIPCO released many, many times and seemed to stay with them for a long time. But I assume those are the ones that Mike either he was switched on, as it were, in terms of knowing when to renew the rights or to get the rights again, or he just mentally made a note to himself: these are the money makers. I'll keep hold of these no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, he held on to some films because he went for rights extensions. He definitely went for rights extensions for Shogun Assassin, and he definitely wanted it. And then, as I say, his business sense was very switched on when he cashed in on the whole Kill Bill 2 release, because Shogun Assassin was mentioned it. I can only imagine Mike sat there, watched Kill Bill 2, and was like, oh wow, there's something here. Like, they've mentioned Shogun Assassin. Because when I first saw Kill Bill 2 and that comment was brought up about the bedtime film, it made me chuckle and laugh. And he obviously caught on to that and thought that there was a great money making spin here, as I have Shogun Assassin, and straight away, in time for the Kill Bill 2 actual DVD release, it was repackaged in, I don't think it's as good case, but it was a crafty design because it mimicked Kill Bill 2. He took the Kill Bill 2 design, which he's so infamous for doing, like he did the Coca-Cola rip-off logo and stuff. He made Shogun Assassin look a little bit like Kill Bill 2. But technically, Kill Bill was referencing films such as Shogun Assassin, and quite rightly put the reference in. But it was funny that Kill Bill referenced Shogun Assassin, and then Shogun Assassin, through Mike's release, referenced Kill Bill. So it was quite a funny little circle they got onto there.
Well, I mean, obviously, Quentin Tarantino's films are full of references to other films, some of which VIPCO have released. But Mike is a businessman. We've mentioned that before on podcasts, and we'll mention it again. Mike was a businessman, despite the fact we love these films probably a bit too much at times. Mike just saw these films as a cash cow, and he certainly did that when another successful cult film, Kill Bill 2, referenced a cult film that he has the rights for. But actually, on this occasion, it's a bit unfair to say Mike's just a businessman when it comes to Shogun Assassin. As we mentioned, he did really love the film. He also claimed that he really loved Zombie Flesh Eaters. So maybe over the years, Mike did learn to appreciate cult cinema to some respect outside of just wanting the money from it.
Yeah, I definitely got the impression with Shogun Assassin, it was there was a lot of passion, and there was a lot of passion behind the release, but also fun. He was happy. He almost wanted to get people to watch it and promote it, as I said earlier. So he loved the money side of it, and he was very happy. But that film was more than just money to him as well. He definitely had a love for it, and you could see his passion with the releases of that. Hence, the case was pretty good. The re-release and the cashing in on Kill Bill 2. He had a lot of time for Shogun Assassin.
Have you? I'll be honest, I haven't got it yet. But have you got the Blu-ray release of Lone Wolf?
I do. I've got the Criterion box set of the Lone Wolf and Cub. It's a nice set actually, and I've also got the Eureka steel tin of Shogun Assassin on its own as well.
Do they have the VIPCO 4 infamous trailers as well as extras?
Unfortunately, no. No, I've still got my VIPCO DVD. That'll always take a nice little treasured place in my collection.
But the Shogun Assassin, I don't think we've mentioned this episode actually, but the reason why we reviewed it this time is because it is the final instalment, not necessarily in order of release, but it's the last instalment of what we call the Fab Four or the Fright Four of VIPCO, the four big hitting VIPCO titles that they got in the pre-cert era that made them a lot of, or them, let's face it, it's probably just Mike Lee, but he made Mike Lee a lot of money. Also got VIPCO in a lot of trouble when it came to things like the video nasties and being raided by the police. But Shogun Assassin, along with Driller Killer, The Boogeyman, and Zombie Flesh Eaters, are the four pre-cert era VIPCO releases that Jason and me think when you think VIPCO, you think of these titles. These are the sort of cornerstones of what VIPCO would build upon in the early 80s that helped the company run until the mid-noughties.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. You've got the four big box VHS Vibrant cases. He said they're Zombie Flesh Eaters, Driller Killer, Shogun Assassin and Bogeyman. They're any hardcore pre-cert collectors, especially of the DPP films, will have to have all of those in their collection.
Yeah, with Shogun Assassin, it's some people say it's a video nasty, some say it isn't. It's forever linked to the video nasty scandal, whatever part of the list it made it onto. Mike certainly took advantage of the fact it was previously cut, banned, what have you, controversial. But he did that with many of the films that only on his watch, as it were. Shogun Assassin, and I'd probably say definitely Zombie Flesh Eaters were the two that he hammered home the most when he re-released them uncut. Or not uncut with Zombie Flesh Eaters, but near enough uncut. Out of the four films, Jason, as we sort of wrap up this era of VIPCO, what do you think is the best out of the Fab Four for VIPCO?
Well, it's a tough one. I think Zombie Flesh Eaters and Shogun Assassin were the biggest money making of them. To be honest, it's a bit hard to say which in the VHS era was. I think VHS era wise, he thought Zombie Flesh Eaters made him the most money. Shogun Assassin's his biggest money earner in the end because of the DVD relaunch. But so Zombie Flesh Eaters was the biggest money maker of that era, VHS wise. Driller Killer was the most controversial. I think Shogun Assassin was next down the list for being infamous, and I think poor old Bogeyman's probably bottom of the pile. For me personally, I find it very hard to choose, but it's a sort of tie between Zombie Flesh Eaters and Driller Killer for me, because Zombie Flesh Eaters is my favourite zombie film, as I've said, and Driller Killer I have a massive love for as a filmmaker and how it speaks to me. And then, yeah, those two are nearly joint, and then I would probably say Shogun Assassin, then Bogeyman for me.
Well, you could say The Boogeyman is the most bonkers out of all those films. If it's got to have a sort of accolade, it's the most bonkers.
Right, yes, yeah, true that, yeah.
I'd probably say Zombie Flesh Eaters, then a close second Shogun Assassin. Might be a bit controversial here, but I prefer The Boogeyman over Driller Killer, just because of that insane artwork, and it's got some pretty mad lighting cinematography as well. But, the fact that you and I have both got all of these films in our collections on VHS and DVD, and then re-releases by other companies, shows that they're probably all worthy films in their own rights. Maybe not as good as each other, but these Fab Four of VIPCO, there's a reason why they did so well for VIPCO, is because they've got staying power, and the fact that decades later they've all been re-released on Blu-ray and people snap them up eagerly shows that the films are probably very not very good in some cases when it comes to The Boogeyman, but they're still good and worthwhile films decades later.
Yeah, I love all four films and highly recommend all four. And anyone into their film collection, I think they should definitely have all four of those in there.
So this sort of wraps up the Fab Four reviews, because I know the first episode of the podcast was just a sort of brief introduction touching down upon VIPCO, and then we've concentrated on these four films from the pre-cert era that did very well, sold the most for VIPCO out of any other titles. We'll end it there. That's been Shogun Assassin, the final part of the Fab Four of films by VIPCO. Any last thoughts on Shogun Assassin, Jason?
I highly recommend Shogun Assassin. It's a real escapism movie. It's real fun, and as in the words of Mike Lee, it's a pure 120 minutes of bliss.
Well, maybe not bliss, but then again, Mike did seem to sort of get a bit carried away in talking about the fact that apparently the blood squirts into the camera like a hose. I don't know if that's him sort of going into a phallic sexual pseudo place. Maybe that's just my interpretation.
Well, it's zombie nosh stuff all over again.
Yeah, well, actually, I've already mentioned that, Jason, because I've realised every episode I, at least, mention Zombie Nosh, and you've mentioned it. So maybe Mike, if we mentioned earlier, Mike could have re-released this film, or he could have released a similar film with the name Shogun Assassin 2. Maybe he could have called it Shogun Nosh. Who knows?
That's a good note to end it on.